Lindholm, centering. Top line. Come on, Kevin.
Well, that might be one of the stories we talk about.
I know. It's perfect. I'll save it. Are you done? Like it's like time work. I swear to God. She sees the headphone come on. I come on here, and then boom. She's like, "Oh, I'm hungry."
She just wants to be on the podcast.
I know. She is. Majority of the time, she is. It's right there.
Oh, there's that beeping sound again.
Oh, she's pretending to not want to be on the podcast. No, I'm just looking out the window. Really, nothing for me to see here. I'm just here to eat. I don't even know why you're trying to pay attention to me here.
Right.
She says sheepishly.
If it starts beeping once again, like once we're on, or I guess we are live, I will unplug it.
We will unplug it.
Okay.
And
negative. We're live. We are live. I didn't do a pun this time, but hey, I heard that. But thankfully, the World Juniors Canada is off to the semifinals. They have defeated the Czechs 3-0. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey. Of course, if you're watching on Facebook, you can like us on Facebook, facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast. We'll also watch live on YouTube, the Hockey Podcast as well as subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Google, iHeart, Spotify, etc. Our first podcast of 2021. How does it feel, Devin?
It feels similar to 2020. No, it's. I'm happy that it's that 2020 is over overall, but you know we're still going to be dealing with the shit going forward for the next couple months at least, if not half a year. So I was not really on board with the whole it's 2021, but I'm listen. I'm happy that hockey's starting soon. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, we're going to have Canucks versus Flames.
That's very true, Sean. Yes, very true. Yes. Jacob Markstrom, Chris Tanev, Josh Levo, Louis Domingue return to play their return game against the Vancouver Canucks. That will be fun. That is in a couple of weeks. We are going to talk about training.
I love how you include Louis Domingue in that.
Former Canuck.
Probably part of the taxi.
Yeah. He's be enjoying the popcorn in the press box.
He's going to be also providing baking for the Flames.
He knows his role.
He knows his role. Yeah. And he knows his roles.
Oh, God.
Okay. Anyway, we are going to actually do a training camp preview after the recap, but we'll start with the game. And also, I'm just going to put the shout out here. Tyler. We're just,
I feel like he's scared to have this conversation on air that we had in our group chat about Canada and them not playing the best of their abilities.
Maybe.
Just calling you out, Tyler. That's bullshit, man.
Call out to Tyler. I mean, yeah, for me, first period, first half, they get up to the 2-0 lead. Then the Czechs respond. I mean, and Devin Levi stood out. Second period was lethargic, and the third period was smothering. This wasn't a 16-2 blowout, a 5-1 blowout, but it was a 3-0 blowout. Really, it was a blowout in the sense of it, but maybe let's grade where we thought Canada was. And I'm sorry that we're going to do this, but the next opponent, should the U.S. win, is going to be their toughest opponent. This is now where we're getting to meat and potatoes. Or for the vegans, what do the vegans eat? Plant-based
beans
and potatoes.
The highest protein vegetable that they can have.
Yeah. This is where you get your meat, potatoes, and for the vegans, vegetables.
They still get a passing grade for me. They got the win, but yeah, I felt like they put it in cruise control after they got up 2-0. That's really what they did. They put it in cruise control and made sure that they didn't give up too many big chances. Devin Levi made the saves when they did give up a couple big high quality chances, but for the most part, it was a bit more of another slog. And you could really tell when they decided to turn it on. The forecheck would get going. They would get into the offensive zone, put on the cycle, and just grind it out. And they would get a couple of opportunities here or there. But I said it was a passing grade, but that's all. There's a lot more. They need to really step it up for the semifinal, because it doesn't matter who they play. It's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, obviously passing grade, they won. What we were mentioning before was, and I'm going to speak for Tyler, even though, he should probably speak for himself here, but he was saying that he has a hard time when people criticize the Team Canada for winning and for, playing decent enough. But I have a hard time. It's just like anytime when, let's say the Canucks, this is what I was going to bring up to him. I'm going to bring up to you guys, is that the Canucks, say for instance, they are winning, but they're not winning the right way. You're still going to be okay. Yeah, you got the points. That's good. You got what you need to do, but it's about the process. It's about being able to overcome adversity, and they have not had any adversity, and they've been very. Sean said it best. It was they put on cruise control, and they cannot do that against whoever they're going to face in the semis. They cannot do that, because if they do, I can guarantee you that the team that either Russia, US, they will be able to come back, and they will be able to score and put pressure and give Canada pressure that they have not had this entire tournament. And that's what's scary about this, is that the process isn't there. The little things aren't being done to the full extent that as they should be against the type of teams that they're playing. One of the things that I saw that really concerned me was the transition game. The forwards were way up there, not supporting the defense at the same time, and there's turnovers. And if they played a good team, not saying the Czechs aren't good, they're a decent team, but compared to the top end talent that is on the Russians and the Finns and USA, I'm assuming USA is going to win. It's not good, and it's not the way. That's not how you make a successful team. They need to be better with that, and they need to be better in their defensive zone. The only reason why the Czechs weren't able to do the dump and chase is because the defense, Canada's defense, was amazing. Like they're too good at skating and retrieving the puck and transitioning it up the ice. But the one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that they weren't able. The forwards were exiting the zone and thinking about offense before supporting the defense, and that's a big red flag for me going forward.
Sorry, go ahead there, Kev.
No, you go ahead.
I completely agree with you, on the transition game. The Czechs were able to exploit it a little bit and create some chances. And as you said, Canada's forwards were way too far up the ice. I think they're cheating because they know the defense, especially Drysdale and Byram, can skate the puck so well. But against the top teams, you're not going to get away with that. You really need to be able to support the puck carrier, give them a quick outlet pass and an easy pass, so that when the opposition does overcommit to that easy pass, that's when the skating lane opens up.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start with the good here. Devin, I thought Devin Levi, we were concerned. This was his first game and he had over 20 shots. He did stand his ground. I thought he looked really sharp, very calm, very confident, very poised. I thought there was nothing wrong with me for the defense. Even Byram Drysdale, Harley Schneider, Gould, all of them were outstandanding today.
Gouli.
The Gouli. They were outstanding. But yeah, I thought the forwards were a little. Connor McMichael is having a tough time. Like, he's getting opportunities. He needs ones. He got one. He got the empty net goal, so hopefully that turns it around.
Got waved into the net by the by the Czech player, though. Like, oh my gosh! I watched it. I was like, whoa! Like, what? Like I just like, are you a bull or are you a bullfighter who's just going ole? Like, I'm sorry, but it just was like, oh, as a defenseman, seeing someone like just like half-heartedly wave their stick at a guy coming down instead of taking the man, just it hurts me. It hurts me.
I mean, the forwards I thought did okay. Dylan Cousins, I thought again was the best there, and I mean, we weren't expecting the Czechs to defeat us. That's not what I was saying. I mean, Russia is going to be a different challenge, and yes, they barely beat the shouldn't be in the tournament Germans, but I think that they're going to be a very tough team. They got a huge victory over Sweden. They will be able to turn it on, and they've got a lot of skill on both ends. They're big, and that's going to be a very different challenge.
Yeah, it 100% will be, and once again, that's where I'm concerned. Overall, is that they haven't done little things right to the full extent as they should be. Once again, it's going to come down to the coaching staff to point those out and make sure that they are focused and they are going to be ready for the task at hand against the Russians. But once again, yes, they won. Devin Levi, Kevin touched on it already, but Devin Levi, I thought he played great, especially at the end. His second half of the game I thought was phenomenal. There were little onslaughts here and there where the Czechs decided to come on and just pepper them with shots, and especially when one of the hardest things for a goalie to do is see through traffic and be positionally sound within that process. And I was very impressed with Levi. It has definitely solidified my thoughts about him, and that he is a solid goalie, and I'm happy he's playing for Canada. So we're happy. That's one of the positives that definitely came out of this game. And Florida should be excited, even though they have Spencer Knight. They should be excited to have Devin Levi as another goalie prospect in my mind.
Yeah, this was definitely Levi's best game, and it wasn't even close for this tournament. In the third period, when the Czechs were pushing, he stood his ground and made it look a little bit easier than I think he'll get credit for, because his positionally he was in the right position for the most part, which is really nice to see and really comforting, because those big crazy out of position saves are always fun to watch, but they're heart wrenching. And when you have a goalie who makes it look easy, it's a lot easier for the fan base to feel more comfortable and confident in being able to, when the shit hits the fan and you have a scramble in front of the net. But yeah, and especially I don't think that we're talking enough about Devin Levi's story too. Like, I look I looked at it. He was playing second-tier junior hockey last season. That's how that's how big a step he's made. Like he's going to Northeastern, and he got the invite because he had been practicing with top end players. I bet you that was probably one of the reasons why he got the invite. But he got drafted by Florida a lot, but he was playing like second tier junior hockey, and to take that step to what it was now, because the reason I looked it up was they were saying how he hadn't had to deal with commercial breaks, TV timeouts before this tournament. I'm like, wait, what? Like even like all the CHL teams have like radio and local television, so they get a little bit of that, but really? And then they look like, oh, that's why. Yeah, second tier.
With the Greater Vancouver Canadians League, we don't have TV timeouts, so it is a bit of an adjustment. So I was fascinated he has a mental coach. I've never heard that before.
Oh, it's not talked about, but I know a lot of goalies do. Braden Holtby is really into that, and like it may not. He may the coach that he goes back to talk about is one of his old coaches from playing in Saskatchewan, but he always goes back to him and talking about the mental side. So they may not be labeled that way, but there's definitely coaches out there that really work on the mental side of the game.
Yeah, even just players in general. I feel like they have mental coaches, if you will, which is I like looking back on my career. I wish I had that. I feel like that would have changed a lot of my game, and because I was an angry fucking player. I played angry, and my play was very angry, and I feel like if I had that, then it'd be different. It's more so about the generation now that I'm talking about, that they have that access to have more in-depth conversations about how they feel, and they have their off-season coach, they have power skating coach, they have just so much resources, and it's really cool to see, and I think that tightens the gap up and makes it a lot harder because there's so many different players who are obviously trying to make it to the NHL, but like having those resources, it tightens things up a bit, because you do have that competition level there with not just what it was back, let's say 10 years ago, but now it's I just feel like it tightens up the field a lot. I just thought it was fascinating. They focused a lot of the broadcast today on his mental game, and I do think that that's interesting. So,
and especially in a situation like this, I used the Justin Pogge reference a few times already. I think it's still very apt, because you want a goalie who can stay composed and focused through long stretches of not getting shots on net. And he didn't have to do that tonight, but throughout the rest of this tournament, he's had long stretches where he hasn't had shots on net, and then have something leak through, a play leak through, and have to face an odd man rush here or there, or a quick shot. It takes a lot of focus, and it's something that I don't think there's a lot of people who don't quite understand that, including myself. I don't think I understand it completely either.
It's hard if you've never been a goalie. If you've been a goalie, we would love to hear your comments. Talk to us about that, what you've been thinking. Is there anything specifically within this game that we want to talk about? Or
I want to talk, going back to little things in the process. The Canadians, when they don't have the puck, is concerning to me. It just doesn't seem like they are tenacious enough to get the puck back sometimes. It's very hit and miss. Their positionings at sometimes too, in the neutral zone and in the defensive zone, is concerning. And I do feel bad about criticizing the team after a win, but overall, it's just like it's just once again, it's those little things that do matter and that do make a difference in it as a whole. And Kevin is gone. See you, Kevin. Kevin has left the building. If you're watching us on Facebook Live or YouTube, I just that's one thing that I really noticed, and I really hope that they can tighten up there. So, Sean, to you.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough. It's tough to watch them at times. I think this is where they miss the home crowd, or even just the buzz in the building. Because I think when you get that, it is easier to stay focused on the little things and to make sure that you aren't just not paying attention to where your positions are, or being more tenacious to get after the puck and get the puck back. There was a couple sort of battles along the that where there was that tenaciousness and that aggressiveness, that pugnacity, if you will. We definitely need to see that more of that. We saw with that, they got a power play out of it because Pelche was an absolute pest.
Aren't you excited?
Boy, it's Pelche. It might be Pelche versus Podkolzin. That would be delicious.
Yes, it will be. It'll be a great matchup. I'm this next 5 years is going to be. I'm really looking forward to the prospects coming up for both the Flames and the Canucks and see how they fare against each other.
Just wait till Hoglander comes out of nowhere with a Pavel Bure flying elbow. He's got a mean streak. Don't like if you go look up some of his clips from the SHL. He's been suspended a couple times for some mean looking Gordie Howe-esque elbows, and it's nice to see.
I mean, you need that truculence. You need that that nastiness, and every once in a while. So it's we'll see if he can transition to the NHL along with Podkolzin and Pelche and Zary. Those are kind of the top two prospects for both.
Gord
heard her name.
Yeah. Hi.
Can I just talk about the MVP of this game? Of course, I have to. I'm sorry. Can we talk about this guy right here? I don't know if you can hear that, but he's not only did he dress like that, he dressed in 3 other outfits. He actually brought on a dog as well. I think he watches the hockey podcast. He sees how Gord does here, and he brought on his own dog. I thought that was one of the highlights.
Yeah, that definitely was. It was kind of cool to see. The personalities that are on that viewership, and bringing in, since there are no fans, definitely bringing in that aspect of it is super cool.
We have a historic moment here. Jordan Romani has joined us, and he is a first-time listener. So there we go. Welcome, Jordan. Tell your friends, subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook.
He's all the way down in Australia, so
wow, hey.
Yeah. He's a good friend of mine.
All right, hey. We'll take the listeners wherever we get them.
Totally.
All right, let's is that all about the game?
I think so. I was just looking forward to what the semifinal looks like. It's most likely going to be the Russians, and that'll be awesome. We always get to a good game between Canada and Russia, especially in the medal round. So it's going to be. I'm really, really looking forward to it because it's about time Canada got back to playing a team that's going to challenge them a little bit more.
Yeah.
And don't be surprised if Sean starts cheering for the Russians and Podkolzin.
Yeah, he starts doing the anthem at the end of the game with Russia. All right. Well, we're going to move on here. tomorrow, after all of what's happened, training camp begins for the Calgary Flames and Vancouver Canucks. The training camp has started for 7-7 non-bubble team started, but for the rest of the league, it starts tomorrow. We're going to talk about the Calgary Flames and Vancouver Canucks storylines, kind of some things that we're looking forward to and I think are going to be interesting. So let's start there. And I'm going to start with, can I start first on this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You never start first on anything, so please.
So one of my storylines that I've been thinking, there's a few, but one that I'm very curious about is going to be David Riddick. This is a guy that came in expected last year to be the number one goalie. He had a tough year. He's basically, what's the word I'm looking for? He's kind of in no man's land here, as he's in the final year of his contract. They signed Jacob Markstrom to the 6x6 deal. What is David Riddick going to look like in training camp? I think is going to be one of the big stories. And I think this is going to be a really important story because Markstrom has been hurt the last 2 years. So you are going to need David Riddick at some point in time. I'm not saying Markstrom gets hurt, but I mean, it's pretty obvious we're going to need 2 goaltenders. Everybody needs 2 goaltenders through this 56-game run, especially when you're playing baseball series. You're going to want to switch that up. So one of my key storylines I'm interested in is David Riddick.
Yeah, I think the split this year, I think ideally going into it with, the not really knowing what injury is going to pop up and who's going to play better. But I think what they're looking for is probably a 60-40 split between Markstrom getting 60 and Riddick getting 40. And Riddick he's a pretty competitive guy. I know that he'll come in and wanting to solidify himself as the number one, even though Markstrom has played the way that he's played and he's getting paid $6 million a year. He will want to push Markstrom, and having that relationship is good for goalies. Making sure that they are not essentially looking over their shoulder, but understanding that there's another goalie there who wants to step in the net and solidify themselves as that number one goalie. And it could be very similar to when Mike Smith was here, where they wanted that too, and they just pushed each other. So that's a good storyline, Kev, and I think that Riddick will be. He better be shot out of a cannon if he wants to have any shot here to make sure that he could get another contract. It is contract year, like you said too, and that's a massive pushing point here for any player who, especially in this environment, as far as a flat cap for the next couple of years, he needs to solidify himself as an NHLer, and he is an NHLer in my mind. It's just how much you're going to get paid going forward, and if it's going to be with the Flames.
Yeah, if it is a 60-40 split, that's still 20 games, 20 plus 22 games for David Riddick, and that can make or break a season in a 56-game season. So yeah, they definitely need him to be on his game, especially to start, because if you can find a way to split the games pretty evenly to start the season, and then give the bulk leading up to hopefully a playoff run for the Flames that they're thinking hopefully a playoff run, then you're going to and give the bulk of the load to Markstrom to get him more into the routine, then that would make a lot of sense. So for me, he needs to be on his game from Monday when they're probably on the ice for the first time.
Devin, do you have a storyline in mind?
I mean, it seems like the top 9 are pretty much set as of right now. I'm as far as that goes, I'm curious on whether or not they're going to push Lindholm to center, and where everybody else is going to slot after that. I don't see Monahan and Gaudreau being split up, especially within a 56-game season. You kind of need to go with what you know. But we do know that Elias Lindholm can play center, and I'm feeling that he will be put at center. It's just who's going to be around him. Is Tkachuk going to move up? Is Mangiapane going to be up there with him, and Backlund going to drop? Because the coach said that he is wanting Stan Bennett at center, Jeff Ward. So where does that put Derek Ryan? And kind of where, like, if they do have Lindholm at center, just where everybody else falls and how that looks. And yeah, I as far as the forwards go, that's kind of what I'm curious about. The fourth line, quote unquote, the newcomers. We have Joachim Nordstrom and Dominic Simone. I feel like they'll probably solidify that fourth line spot. And once again, for the top four defense, cause there's been a lot of talk about where Chris Tanev's going to be. Is he going to be with Mark Giordano? Is he going to be with Noah Hannafin? Is he going to be with Valimaki? I would love to see him with Valimaki, just because the storylines out of Vancouver last year was he played with Quinn Hughes and really helped his development as a defenseman, was able to be that reliable guy back there. And I feel like, his knowledge and his experience will be beneficial with Valimaki than or Hannafin for that matter, because I feel like Hannafin does have another gear to get to if he really wants to solidify himself. Otherwise, I don't see him with anybody else. And also they're also talking about Connor Mackey. He was when the relaunch happened of the NHL, they talked about him a lot, and I haven't seen him play, but it seems like they're pretty high on him. I'm kind of curious to see where he lines up as well.
Yeah, for me, the storylines are Elias Lindholm, whether they play him at center or they keep him on the right wing, because that right wing, right shot right wingers are the Flames are a little thin on. They're very left shot heavy up front. So whether or not they do that, and if that means that Backlund shifts to the right wing as well, or if they end up moving someone up like Josh Levo, who I think one of the reasons he signed with Calgary was that there is a legit opportunity for that right wing spot, as well as on the third line as well. I think I don't think the top nine is as set as Devin, but I think
who would change? Who'd you have change? Because you have Monahan, you have Johnny, you have Backlund, you have Tkachuk. As far as for the last 5 years, it seems like everybody talks about pairings instead of lines altogether, and having someone step in as the third person on that line. So, who would step up there?
I guess it all comes down to what they do with Lindholm. If they keep him on the right wing, then I think there's definitely a right spot available. Because I think they would want to have someone like Josh Levo with like Tkachuk and Backlund. I think that would work. But if they end up moving Lindholm to center, and again, if they decide that they don't want to, and they want to keep Backlund at center as well, then again, that you have a gaping hole at right wing. But even if you move Backlund to the right side, I still think there's an outside shot for someone like Josh Levo, who is a right shot right winger, who was underused in Toronto, found his stride in Vancouver, and then just unfortunately got injured. So it'll be interesting to see how his speed and his quickness looked after coming off such a brutal knee injury. But I think there are opportunities in there for someone to take it and run with it on that right side up front for the Flames. And then the deep pairings are all up for grabs, I think. Because you're expecting a big year from Rasmus Andersson, and him taking another step. You're hoping for, if you're Flames fans, you're hoping for Noah Hannafin to continue to be a steady second pair defenseman. I think unfortunately, I think Hannafin gets a lot of flack just because of how good Hamilton's looked in Carolina, and just he's still making four and a bit. So he's still making enough money for people to be like a lot willing to criticize, but I still think he's a very good second pair defenseman that you any team would be happy to have. And then where does Tanev slide in? Does he slide in with Gio? Does he slide in with Hannafin? Does he play with one of the kids? Because as Devin said, not only do they have Val Mackey, but they're very high on Connor Mackey as well. And both of those guys are left shot defensemen. And if you play them with a steadying force like Chris Tanev, that could really solidify a pairing right there. And then you could find a way to mix and match with another pairing, because they've got a bunch of left shot defensemen, but that are able to switch over to the right side. Nikita Nesterov is one, and then they've also got Alex Petrovic, who I don't know what their plan is with him either, but he's played a decent amount of games in the NHL. So the defense is a huge storyline to watch for Flames fans.
And also Oliver Shillington too, right? He can play the right side as well. And yeah, I totally forgot about Josh Levo. My apologies, because I do think that he is a good middle six player. So yeah, he could definitely push for a spot.
Yeah, because I can see Levo playing with Bennett and Dubé, and then you can slide Lucic down to the fourth line,
which would be fantastic.
Yeah. No, I mean, and then or you could throw Levo with Backlund and you could chuck Levo, Lindholm, Mangiapane, and then maybe you move Monahan to the wing and keep Backlund. I know Backlund has said he doesn't enjoy the wing, so I don't foresee him being the guy that ends up going to the wing, which is, I think, the part of the problem here. So, I mean, you could move Ryan maybe to the wing.
Don't worry, Backlund. You've got one more season, then you're going to be in Seattle.
Potentially, for sure.
Yeah.
I could definitely. I think that when you have so many centers that you can push them to the wing, if they have a left-right tendency, or if they're better on one side of the ice for center X draw, or a draw, that having that diversity is perfect. So I could definitely see Derek Ryan going to the wing as he did in the return to play, for sure. And don't close your, or don't overthink Alexander Yellison too. He's a right-handed shot. Sorry,
and Anton. Is it Anton?
No, it's Alexander.
Yeah, because he can play. He can play too. He played a couple games last year. I remember watching. He wasn't anything to brag home about, but he could be a good number 7 to 6 defenseman if you really need him, because you know that they're going to be potentially injuries for sure, and he could. Don't be surprised if you see him in the lineup.
And jumping on with Devin on Derek Ryan, he's a right shot as well and has some underrated offensive ability. So he could jump in on the right wing in the middle six if they decide to go. If Backlund doesn't want to move, if they don't want to move Backlund to the right wing, and they still want to move Lindholm, and then they're just absolutely loaded down the middle with Monahan, Lindholm, Backlund, and then Bennett if they're so determined to have Bennett as a center. So they've got options, and like I said, I think the top 9 there's a couple spots up for grabs in the top 9.
And also, there's another line I wouldn't mind seeing at some point. I wonder if they do Bennett, Mangiapane, and Dubé together, which I think would be an interesting line. But
I would like to see that too. It's just with every point matters very much within the shortened season, and it would be fun to kind of play with the lines and juggle with them. If you're going to do it, you got to do it sooner than later, and maybe that's what happens out of the gate for your first couple games. But it's hard to experiment with the way that things are right now.
And I think the other thing that I think is going to be interesting is Connor Zary, Pelche, what do you do with the Zeris, Pelches, Kuznetsovs, etc.?
Well, Kuznetsov's going back to the NCAA there, Kev. He's not coming into camp. So that's
Zeri
that.
Zeri
and Pelche, I think, will at least come into camp. I wouldn't be surprised if they start off on the taxi squad, just as they keep them there until they know exactly what's going on with the Q and the dub. I don't know actually what's going on with the Q right now. Are they playing? Are they not playing?
Nobody's playing, but things are starting to ramp up a little bit. But.
So
it'd be hard to put them in there. Like I'd say you could definitely have a space for one of them, and that's going to be probably the battle there for training camp is who's going to come out ahead. And right now, I'd say Pelche probably will come out ahead of Zeri to be on that taxi squad because you can only have five players, right? So
5 skaters, yeah.
5 skaters, exactly. So it's you have Dominic Simone there. You have Joachim Nordstrom as well. You got to have a couple defense on there, like a Connor Mackey, like a Nesterov, and I just that leaves one other spot open, which is probably going to be a forward spot, and it could be Pelche or Zeri. But as of right now, I could definitely see Zeri being the odd man out there.
Well, the one thing though is that you still can have a 23-man roster, so you could carry as many. So that's going to be 21 skaters. You could carry as many as 26 skaters. So there is still room for both of them, at least to start. And the Flames, it looks like the Flames have the cap space to be able to carry a full, at least close to a full 23-man roster to start the season. So they may. I could see them potentially having the spots for them, but there's also the thought. There's also some of the AHL players that are available. Dmitry Zavgorodny, I think, might push for a spot.
Gordon disagrees. No, she hates it. She hates it.
Not believe that Dmitry is going to be on like that.
No,
Matthew Phillips. Like there's going to be a lot of battle for those taxi squad spots. I'm not going to say who's going to make them, but I say that I think the reason one of the reasons they signed Zeri was they thought that he has a shot. Yeah. So
there's also I hate to say this, but Zach Ronaldo as well has the potential to be up there too. So just as NHL experience goes. There's so much potential there, and there's a lot of storylines, a lot more than I thought there was for sure.
Yeah. My one thing that I do want to say about one of the I usually don't do this, but I am going to do this. One of the dumbest takes that I heard in this offseason with the Markstrom Tanev stuff, and this will blend in when we talk about the Canucks, is the fact that Chris Tanev was no help to Quinn Hughes. That was one of the dumbest takes that I have ever heard. There was a guy that tweeted that Chris Tanev was no help for Quinn Hughes.
Who was that?
I'm not going to say who it was.
No, say who it was. Fuck,
I'm not going to say it. I'm not.
What?
It was a fairly well-known podcast in Vancouver said that Quinn Hughes was carrying Chris Tanev. That is nonsense, and I think that's why I'm really hoping that we see the Tanev Valimaki thing happen. But I suspect we're going to see a lot more Tanev Giordano. Unfortunately,
there's the Daltman pair, and like anytime that I don't like having an offensive pairing a pairing together. I like having an offensive defenseman with a defensive defenseman that can feed off each other and that can let the offensive defenseman gallop and become that extra forward on that on the rush. And I don't. If that does happen, it happens. But it's not something that I would be very keen on. And I hope that Jeff Ward really takes a look at that and does not do it because, man, talk about the old man defenseman there, the foot speed. Oh dear God.
They'll need Canes to get off the ice.
Yeah, I would like to see Rash with Giordano and then Tanev with Valimaki and or Hanifin. One of the.
I could see potentially Hanifin to jump in there with more than Valimaki, just because I feel like sorry, Sean had said this earlier. I wanted to jump in, but I let him finish what he was saying. I don't think that is a comparison to Dougie Hamilton. I think it has to do with the fact that he has wheels, he's able to skate, and that there is an offensive side to him. It's just it seems like there is more potential there than he is willing to give out. It just seems like there's some hesitation in his game, and I think that's the driving factor behind people criticizing Hanifin and who he is as a defenseman, because I think that there is another level there, and if there isn't, and that's totally fine. He is a solid 3-4 defenseman in this league easily enough. He's still young, and there's still time to grow, but it just
yeah, he jumped in so early with Carolina, and in the season before the Flames traded for him, he had 32 points and 10 goals in 79 games. And since coming to Calgary, he had 33 points, but only 5 goals in the first season. And then last year he put up 22 points in and 5 goals in 70 games. So like, I don't know how much more there is there, but it's still a very good. He's still a very solid defenseman that every team would love to have.
Yeah, I agree. I think I still think he's got a lot there. Yeah, I think part of it is I don't know if him and Hamonic worked as well as everyone wanted to. As Devin, we'll get Devin back here in a second. But maybe the Tanev pairing works, or the Petrovic, or someone else too. It might be a bit different too. So we'll see about that. Anything else in terms of Flames storylines that?
So I think it just comes down to Lindholm and the right side and the defense.
Yeah.
And then, the battles for the taxi squad spots, which I think will be interesting. Unfortunately, we don't get to any exhibition games to really dig our teeth into it leading up into all this because of everything. But yeah,
I know. As we wait for Devin, I'm going to give you the floor for a quick second. We'll move on to the Canucks training camp stories. Sort of where are you at? I have one that I think is going to throw you off a little bit, but I want to hear what you have to say. But I'll be a couple seconds here. You talk.
All right, so it's just me now. All right, I like this. All right, with the Canucks, I think it's actually very similar to the Flames. The right side up front, you got Jake Virtanen. With Toffoli leaving and Jake Virtanen having a season that gave us hope again. We're hoping that there's hope that he can step up into a top 6 role. If not, then there definitely needs to be something done there. They've got Adam Gaudette. What is he going to be able to take strides this year and become like a third line center that can be relied on? Because if he can do that, then that'll become huge for the Canucks. And then defense pairs. I think Canucks fans are all hoping for Quinn Hughes and Tyler Myers, and then Edler and Nate Schmidt. So again, really? Devin talking about having offensive defensemen and defensive defensemen paired together to work together that way. And then the bottom pair is going to be very interesting. The Canucks brass is high on Olli Juolevi being ready to play this year. So we'll get potentially 10 games of Tkachuk versus Juolevi, which will be fantastic.
Will it?
But there's also Jack Rathbone, who they signed out of college this past summer, and he's got skating abilities that are very good and already NHL ready, according to a lot of the scouts. So they've got a couple young guys on the left side, as well as Brogan Rafferty, who lit up the AHL last year, and then they just kept spouting Jalen Chatfield as a possibility. So You got all of them, and then Jordy Ben to round out the people, the players that are going to be battling for the last 2-3 defense spots on this roster. So, but yeah, I think it really comes down to the defense pairings, as well as what does the right side of the Canucks forward lines look like going into game 1 versus Edmonton.
So I see even Canucks Army, just looking at this now, has Hughes with Myers. You not Hughes with Schmidt, okay?
No, again, I totally agree with Devin on the fact that I want to be able to have 2 really good puck movers on both your top 2 pairs. And Hughes and Myers played a little bit last year together. We're a very possession positive pair, and that usually trends better. So I think that's a good way to handle it, and it might make the Tyler Myers contract, at least for this season, look a little bit better. And then you've got and then you can throw out you can play then once that pairs off, you can throw out Edler and Schmidt, and you've got another pair that has a top end puck mover in Nate Schmidt, and a pair that you could probably pair up against top lines if you wanted to hard match as well, because Schmidt is also pretty adept at playing shutdown defense as well. So I don't think that Hughes and Schmidt is an option, at least to start games. If you're behind and you want to load up and start like just causing terror for the opposing teams when they hop over the boards, then yeah, go for it. But I think when you start the game off, I think it makes a lot of sense to balance it out a little bit more and have Hughes and Myers as a pair and Edler as Schmidt as your other top 4 pair.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm more apt for Schmidt, but I hear what you're saying. I just think that like if you're going to throw, you said what I think is the most important part of this is if you want to create terror, Hughes and Schmidt can create that terror and that pressure. This is no disrespect to Myers, but I do feel like Schmidt and Hughes would be a more dynamic pair than Myers.
Oh, definitely, but you still need to balance it out. Like then you're stuck with Edler and Myers as a pair. Talk about potential old man pair, and foot speed issues. Like that's why you split. That's why you're going to split Schmidt and Hughes up. You need that foot speed on both pairs.
I don't think Tyler Myers is that slow.
It's more about his acceleration than anything else. Once he's like 3 strides in, then yeah, he's okay. But they got a long leg, so there's 3 strides. Goes from the top of the circle just outside the blue line. That's saying something when he's going up ice.
That's fair. He's only 30 years old, though.
I know. I played with him. I played against him.
Yeah, unfortunately, 30 years old is is part of the is when you start to see the decline a lot. So that's one of the issues. Like we're watching World Juniors and one of the Shakir Makamadulin has been a bit of a giraffe out there at times, like stumbling on the ice and on the pivots, and Myers has that issue as well at times. So if you're gonna, that's why you want to be able to pair him with someone who can skate like Quinn Hughes, or whatever. But like I said, I do not want Edler and Myers as a pair because I do not like the foot speed issues with that pairing.
Could you imagine McDavid coming down, one-on-one with one of those guys? Because McDavid made Morgan Riley look like a complete fool last year, if you don't remember that. And Morgan Riley, he's not sleight of foot. Like he can skate, and he's a good fucking defender.
Yeah,
man.
So I said, and that's why I split them up. You got to be able to split them up and have the balance on there. This isn't like the NBA where you can have like one line and one player really help dominate a game. That's you need to be able to have skill and puck moving and fleet of foot defensemen on every pair now.
You got to have all lines firing, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
my biggest question going into camp is what is Jake Virtanen? Where is he at in his development? That's the major thing that for Canucks fans that I'd be wondering about. Another thing would be I guess his the way that he prepares for a game, because I've heard that as well, is that he doesn't seem like he is very engaged and he just shows up and whatever happens. It's kind of very maybe in a different way than Phil Kessel, but a Phil Kessel-esque attitude towards preparation. And I guess with this time off, it'd be very. I'm curious to see what Coach Green says about him and his how he is as far as conditioning, where his head's at overall. So yeah, that overall I think is the major thing. But another thing I'm kind of curious about is Brock Besser. How is he going to be this year? He got injured last year. I feel like he wasn't playing at the top of his game, and I feel like there is a different. Another level that he can get to, maybe more so towards his rookie year when he was a part of the All-Star game and Sidney Crosby came up to him and said, "Oh, hey, so you have a good shot there." Kind of Brock Besser. I feel like he needs to step it up to in order for Vancouver to be successful. And whether or not another one would be TJ Miller. JT Miller. Sorry, I always screw it up between him and the comedian. I apologize. Whether or not he is going to be as effective of a player, and if he potentially has another level to him as well. So those are kind of like the storylines I'm following, along with the defense and where everybody slots in there. So, and I guess I'm kind of curious about the where the goaltenders are at, what the split's going to look like for Holtby, how many games he's going to get, and how that relationship is going to be. Because once again, it's very similar to Calgary and who's going to push who. I think that is very intriguing, and to see potentially if Thatcher Demko can take that next step as well. So there's a lot going on here with these two teams, and it'd be a completely different story if Michael Furlan was ready to go and ready to jump in as well. But obviously he's not, and hopefully he's doing well and has a speedy recovery and is able to play this year. Because if he comes back and is able to play the way that he plays, especially within a tightened season, shortened season, then watch out for Vancouver Canucks, because that solidifies that top six pretty damn quick.
I don't expect to see Furlan back this year. He's not even coming to camp. I think he's, from what I've heard, he's staying at home. So they just have to go through the paperwork to put him on LTIR at the most opportune time with the capish, the cap situation. I expect Demko to be the guy to start, depending on how quickly Holtby picks up the changes that and everything that Ian Clark's going to work on him with. So I expect Demko to be sort of the guy who shoulders the load, at least to start. I agree with you, Devin. For seeing where Virtanen is at is a huge story. But with Besser, he's built out his game into a more well-rounded game, so he doesn't have to be the one-shot sniper that he was in his first.
But that's his bread and butter, man.
But if he can get back to that makes him just gets the Canucks to a point where they've got a handful of really good players that can carry this team through a short season. So in a way, I disagree with your assessment, but I do agree that if Besser can kind of his shooting can rebound, then watch out, because the Canucks are going to be absolutely deadly, because they'll be able to play, especially, it doesn't matter what line he'll play on, because I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jake Virtanen with Pettersson and Miller to start, just because they'll want to be able to have Bo Horvat as and his line has more of a playing a little bit against the tougher matchups. So Pearson, Horvat, and Besser being having the bigger build and being able to and being a lot more responsible defensively will fit into that more. So, and if that's the case, then Brock Besser's shooting at the rate he was in his first couple seasons and putting up like a 25 goal plus rate, that's not just that the Canucks that have two lines that can you have to watch out for, and you won't be able to match up against just one.
What's more important though? What makes Brock Besser more important to the Canucks? Him as a let's say 20, just under 20 goal scorer, but he's good. How good is he defensively, I guess, is my question in comparison. Is he more beneficial being a 200-foot player, or is it more important for him to score 25 to 30 goals? I think it's more important for him to score 25 to 30 goals because that is his bread and butter, and that's where he makes a big difference. I mean, yes, sure, being a 200-foot player is more ideal, but you got to make sure you score the goals because you're right, man. If they do shut down that top scoring line, then that's an issue. And Brock Besser, he needs to show up. He needs to be able to score those goals. I think that's the most important thing for him.
And he had a good spurt early in the season last year where he was playing that way. Like I said, I think he's probably closer to a 200-foot 25 goal scorer more than a 30 goal, like less than 200-foot guy.
Is that like where you want him to be, where you think he can be? Or is that his potential? Or like
I think that's where he's at right now. I think he can get it back up to that 30 goal plateau for sure. He's got the shot, especially if they can work it around and give him a little, like a split second more to shoot that puck. That's all he needs. He's one of those guys that if you give him a split second more, he's going to find that hole in the goalie and score. So, like I said, I really do think that he's going to take it to the next level this year. I think this is a rebound year for him, and that will be huge because I do see that there might be a bit of a regression from JT Miller, but I don't think it'll be that much. But I do think that Brock Besser stepping up will be something that will be huge for the Canucks with this season if they're going to be proving a lot of the critics wrong and pushing into that top four of this North Division.
But where is he more effective then? Do you put him with Pettersson or do you put him with Horvat?
Unfortunately, you have to go with he's better with Pettersson, but again, it's all about balance in these lines going into this season because I don't see the fit with Jake Virtanen on Bo Horvat's wing, and when you so you're gonna have to try Virtanen and go just see if he can like absolutely just skate the other team into the ground with Pettersson, Virtanen, and JT Miller on the top line, and then hope that you can grind out a bunch of goals with Horvat and Besser. So there's not a. I would prefer to see him with Pettersson, but there isn't a good option for that right wing for Bo Horvat if that's the case.
Okay, so one of the other questions that now comes up then is, and we have to talk about it because he's part of the vernacular of Canucks Twitter.
I know.
Louis Eriksson.
You can't even spell his name right, Kevin.
Well, okay.
Okay.
It's no C.
No C.
Oh, no C.
Hey, sometimes, I'm going quickly, and that happens. Okay, but okay, some we heard this. I heard this on the C4 podcast as an example. Is do we expect him to play second line minutes?
Not to start.
No? I don't think he's playing on the second line at all. I really don't. I don't see. I see fourth line. I see him in the situations that Louis Eriksson is Louis in, but I just don't see it. Now, of course, a lot of that is going to have to do with what happens with Virtanen, but I really don't see Louis Eriksson being on the second line.
Travis Green loved him there. He loved him there during the return to play, and he thought that he was very effective there. So I personally wouldn't be surprised if he's there.
That's because Jake Virtanen wasn't effective. That's because he really didn't have a lot of other options.
Yeah. The way I look at it is that they're going to give Virtanen some rope here, and they're going to give him a shot. They're going to see what they have. They're going to give him that top six shot that to see if he can stick. Because if he can stick and he can play it in the top six role, the Canucks are a better team. If he can't, that's when Louis comes in, unfortunately. But I think Louis starts on the fourth line at best, if not in the press box. You've got Zach McEwen pushing for a spot. You've got Niels Hoglander coming in, chomping at the bit. You've got Cole Lind chomping at the bit.
Zach McEwen.
Yeah, I just said Zach McEwen.
Did you say Zach McEwen? Did my ears hear that? Because they didn't register, but
you got Jace Hallerla coming in, looking to make a splash. Someone who a lot of people think hasn't gotten there, could be the next sort of Josh Levo. Didn't get a good enough look in his previous spots. So there's a lot of opportunity on that right side. And then you got Brandon Sutter as well, depending on how they want to line up the centers. Like, the way I look at it is, if Virtanen hits in that top six, Louis not going to see much time there, if any at all. But if Virtanen stumbles, that's Louis' opportunity.
Once again, it's a shortened season, so you will see Louis Eriksson. There's no way fans or buts whether or not he starts in the press box or he comes in a quarter or even half the way through the season. You will see him at some point.
Oh yeah, no, but I think we're not expecting him on the top two lines. Is my point. The other I want to precurse this because this is going to sound like a little bit of a panic, and this may sound ridiculous. But this is a sophomore year, and sophomore years can always.
You shut your mouth, Kevin. I know where you're going with this. You shut your mouth.
I just want to ask: what do you expect from Quinn Hughes this year?
More of the same.
Challenges that he's going to deal with. He is going to miss Tanev. That will be an adjustment that he's going to have to deal with. I'm sure he'll be fine. But also, I think. How much ice time is he going to get this year? Because I suspect that Green is going to want to play him a lot more.
Yeah, and he's going to be fine. I think looking back at how this whole 2020 played out, Quinn Hughes basically got a second off season from when things shut down in March and then to when things kicked off again in August. That's like what a normal off season. Even if you get to the Stanley Cup Finals, is 2.5 months, right? And then you look at what that one was. It was March, April, May, June, July, August. You got 5.5, 6 months to prep, to get stronger, and then you got a couple more months again. So I do not have any concerns about a sophomore slump with Quinn Hughes.
As far as a slump goes, what is defined as a slump? Is his numbers?
Slump
is it his numbers that are his offensive numbers that are going to decrease because he's going to want to be more focused on the defensive side of things? I see him wanting to round out his game more. I see him wanting to be more defensive because that was his that was his problem in the playoff / return to play, was the fact that his defensive side of the puck wasn't really up to where it should be, and that's where
he only really struggled with opposition.
I'm sick of the excuses. I don't want to hear that. That's.
Well, it's the truth.
No, it's not. No, stop.
It is. He was injured to begin the Vegas series at the end of St. Louis, and that's when you had him struggle. Those games were when he struggled the most. He had major issues.
that is such that's an excuse, man. That is such an excuse.
It's not an excuse. It's freaking.
If he was injured, why the fuck was he playing?
He wasn't injured that far.
In the playoffs when you're injured, though, that happens. Everyone.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is that like his defensive play was exploited, whether he was injured or not. There's players out there who get injured during the playoffs or whenever, and their play does not deter. It does not veer off. And the way that we are talking about him as being fucking up here, that needs to change. Like depending on this on the injury, depending on whether or not he I see that as an issue, and I see that as a potential a dip in his offensive numbers because he wants to get better defensively. And sure that could have been the issue going forward, but I just, man, I don't know. I feel like Tanev was able to plug those holes in his game. And listen, Tyler Myers is not a Chris Tanev, and that could exploit him and them as a pairing together for the offensive onslaught that they could be facing here in the Northern.
Before you say something, Sean, what I do think is going to happen a little bit more this year is teams are going to prepare for him and game plan for him specifically. So that is just part of natural progression, right? You do that with all superstars. Cale Makar, I think, will have that too. Quinn Hughes is going to go through that. So to me, I think my questions are not like, I don't expect a disastrous season. That's not what I'm saying from Quinn Hughes, but I do think that there's going to be some new challenges that Quinn Hughes will face.
Yeah, that's every season for every player, though. We saw that with Elias Pettersson last year, and he was still one hell of a player.
Okay, but how many players do we say is the best player on the team? We usually say it's one or two. In this case, it's Quinn Hughes. And you would agree that the Canucks are driven through Quinn Hughes. Fair?
Hughes and Petey run the show, yes.
Yeah. So adjusting to that is, as a superstar, as a star player, is part of that maturation process. I'm not saying.
Remember, he just went through the return to play where he played Minnesota in 5 games, St. Louis 6 games, Vegas 6 games, where they game planned for him, especially Vegas, and he still found a way to be very, very good.
So you don't think that there'll be even a slight step back?
I think he's gonna develop as a defenseman. I think he is gonna round out his game. Maybe he doesn't take a huge leap forward offensively, but he doesn't have that much more to take. Like, he put up 53 points in 68 games last year. Like, if he puts up 40 points in 56, that's still really freaking good. And if that's the case, a tiny step back in terms of points while he's still being Quinn Hughes and creating offense, getting the puck out of the defensive zone with his legs and his passing ability, creating offense, even if he doesn't get a point, or creating offensive chances, controlling the puck, then that's fine. Like, if he takes a slight step back points wise, I don't think he's going to take a step back in terms of the level of his play.
Okay. I'm just curious where people are at, because I mean this market will defend him, and that's fine. But I'm just curious what we're going to see from him. It's not uncommon to see a sophomore struggles. That is common with rookie players, and that's why I brought it up.
And I get it, but like I said before, this is such a different year. He's had basically 2 off seasons since his quote unquote rookie year. Because of COVID, right? So he's had 6 to 8 months to naturally mature physically. Like, we've heard rumors that Petey's put on 10 pounds since the bubble, and that'd be great for him because that's something that he needs as well. He needs to be able to bulk up naturally. I remember last year when I saw Brock Besser come into camp, I'm like, ooh, that looks a little big. Just a little bit, like, because you worry about foot speed is key. Playing with speed and having foot speed is key in this game in today's NHL. So that's what I said. I think if he does take a step back offensively in terms of point production, I don't think his game is going to take a step back.
Why would his team? Why would his game take a step back if his offensive output isn't the same?
Because there's other things where he's still probably, like I said, if he put up 53 points in 68 games, if he knocks isn't at that same point per game rate, but is still providing, it's still using his hockey smarts, his passing, his skating abilities to control the game, get the puck out of the defensive zone, transition the puck up ice, use it to create offensive chances, then his game isn't taking a step back.
Well, that's exactly what I said. You guys got cut off of me saying that he was injured and that his defensive game was shit. But I was talking about that. Exactly.
I hear you. I hear it. Any other things we need to talk about with the Canucks?
Again, taxi squad. The taxi squad battle again is going to be something to watch.
Can we call it what it is? Let's call it
the taxi squad.
Lift squad. Come on, you don't lift.
Okay, Frankie. If you want that to be the sponsorship, you can have it. But you've got Niels Hoglander coming over. The AHL looks like it's starting up beginning of February, so you still got a couple weeks there. Do you hold on to some AHL players there, level player like a Niels Hoglander, where you might want to play him in the AHL, or do you want to just send him right down for camp? With Vancouver and Calgary, it gets complicated more because of where their AHL affiliates are. It's not like you can call people up and not have to worry about a 10-day quarantine.
That's why the taxi squad's there.
That's why the taxi squad's there. So, but again, it's all about, okay, who do you put on it? Like, are you going to shuffle players back and forth between the roster, the 22, 23 man roster, and the taxi squad, or what, to get playing time for players? So, because
yes. If the answer is yes, Sean.
Yeah, but you look at that. They said Niels Hoglander, Cole Lind, Jace Hallerock are all pushing for spots. Justin Bailey, don't remember this name, Mark McCallis. The Canucks are very big on him. They signed him out of NCAA. He's a German kid. Went out and played some games in Germany already this year, back in the fall and the early winter. And then on the blue line, you've got we talked about Olli Juolevi and Rathbone and Rafferty. Again, it's playing around with that, right? So I'm be very interested to see who actually gets put on the taxi squad out of camp because of the quarantine issues with going back to and from Utica.
Don't think that teams aren't going to try and. I guess the northern teams are going to try and exploit that a little bit, in the sense that they're going to have their taxi squad, and those are going to be the main guys that are going to be, and now the lineup. And it's going to, and for those of you who don't know, it's going to be the same thing as being called up from, like as far as Calgary goes, Stockton, or Utica for Vancouver. You still have to go through waivers. You're not waiver exempt. If you have to go through waivers, you have to go through waivers. But I do see them potentially, if having players up here, not technically on the taxi squad, but they're here in Canada, potentially ready to play, and are skating outside of being within, the NHL realm.
I've also heard of ideas of these teams placing one or two players on the Canadian AHL teams.
Yeah, I could see that too.
So because then that way you still have an ability to call someone up.
Hey,
it's whether or not that those franchises are willing to do that too, to help out, especially within Canada.
I know. I was about to say that too. That it comes a little. It depends on who the player is and how likely they're going to be called up, because if the AHL team has anything to say about it and they're getting a good player, they're going to want them, right? as opposed to just falling in line underneath the NHL team. So it's I think maybe you might see one player from each of these, the Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver, maybe getting on one of the other the Canadian AHL teams, maybe, but I think it's a long shot.
Well, I mean, if you're going to do what the Blues did with Mike Hoffman, you're going to see some ways to legally get around things. That there is going to be some creativity happen. There's no question about that.
Sean's not going to like it because it's not going to benefit the Canucks.
Fuck! Do I need to tell you to fuck off this time?
If you want to, I mean, I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you how you came up with the cap circumvention bullshit. So,
you mean how I was right, and it is cap circumvention, and it should be outlawed?
I said a cap circumvention bullshit. It's not cap circumvention.
It is cap circumvention. It really is.
It is not, dude. It's not written in the CBA.
Neither. Okay, so neither was those back-ended front-loaded contracts.
Kevin, end it. We're done.
Hey, I mean, the other thing that we could do is just make all these taxi squad players MLAs for particular parties across Canada, and they could do a vacation. And then, that would be great. I'm sorry.
Bringing in everything at the end. I like it.
Bringing in. Okay. So we've got lots coming up. We will be recapping. We're back on Monday to recap Canada's World Junior game. We've got, we'll be talking to Joel, the Turtle, Godet, from Sportsnet 650. We're going to do a season preview of all the Canadian teams, of all of these northern teams. So we've got, we're going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens. We've got the Sens Hour podcast coming up to talk about the Senators. We're getting things together for some of the other ones. So look out for that. So we've got lots of content coming up. So Jordan, if this is your first time, stick around. We'll be around for doing a whole bunch of things, even in Australia. Yeah. Anything I missed before we go to the how we follow?
I'm just excited to have the conversation with the Sens podcast about Shabbat versus Hughes. I think that'd be a great debate.
Okay, you're taking this way too far with this. Come on.
What do you mean? If it was way too far, if it wasn't way too far, then you'd still be on the whole Hughes is way better thing. So
I've never said that. Hey. Yep. Stop twisting my words. I've never said that.
How do we follow everyone?
I'm GordHouse09 on Twitter.
I am Bearded Canucks 03 on Twitter.
Heidi is Hyde, Amazeballs, Schneids, SCHNEIDZ, Tyler T Noble, KEVOLE, Spreaker.com, the Hockey Podcast, Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast. You guys can continue to argue if you want, but we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.